Okay, we'll probably start. Good evening, everyone. My name's Jim. I'm the current president of the club.
Can you turn the microphone on?
It's on, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
And thank you for coming tonight. Tonight is the first night in the workshops of the club where we will actually have an industry guest to lead the workshop, which is, as advertised, rubber duckies. Now, I just want to remind everyone here that what you're going to learn for educational purposes, not so that you can do them or use the things that you've learned for malicious intent. Okay? It's something that you've signed, hopefully you've signed when you signed up for the club, that things that you learn will not be used maliciously, because it is actually something that can be used right after you finish from this workshop. Now, our guest today is one of the, when I started in my university degree, I looked for groups outside of uni to help me understand what it's like out in the industry. Now, I found his group, study sessions with Butchie, and basically it gave me an insight of what things I need to learn so that when I get to the industry or when I finish my degree, I will have a leg up against other students applying for a job. I will have the relevant skills that is needed by industry other than the paper degree that you will get from uni. Okay? So when you get a chance, I actually do recommend to join the study sessions with Butchie, which is his Discord channel and his group. And there it's a group of people, not just from Flinders, but industry people as well, that helps out students get what you need to actually break into industry. They will at least point you to the right direction if you are lost into, for example, what do I need to do so that when I finish uni, my resume becomes really appealing? Or if you have a question, which part of Adelaide is currently hiring, they would know because they're out there actually working in the industry. Okay? So without further ado, our industry guest today is Stephen Bartimore. For the longest time, I actually thought it's Bartimore, but it's Bartimore. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. From Cyber Ops, and he's a cybersecurity consultant in Cyber Ops. Let's give it a warm welcome for everyone.
Thanks, Ip. So I'm hoping everyone can hear me, or do I need to move this a little bit more? Oh, damn, that's scary, isn't it? So hi, I'm Steve. Most people do know me as Butchie, mainly because I am that type of character. I do get a bit cheeky, so don't mind my banter as it comes out through the demonstration. As Jim did kindly say, what we're teaching here is not, don't go out and, hack into the university's network. They will not be happy with me, and I don't like answering questions. So, today's workshop is about rubber duckies. Now, I do have an actual Hak5 rubber ducky, so that's the only one that theoretically can be called a rubber ducky, mainly because, patents, copyright, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, a rubber ducky is just something that pretends to be a keyboard. Now, up on the screen we have, 3 different versions. So one is the actual Hak5 rubber ducky, the one with the little duck on it. The one that we'll be going through tonight is the one in the middle, which is a DigiStump AT Tiny 85. And the one on the end is a Malduino, which has been developed in the UK by a guy called Seatonic. The main difference between all of them, some have limitations. So the AT20 has a limited amount of memory in it. Okay, so you won't be able to script as much as you would with a rubber ducky or a Malduino. But at the same time, it's $4. The Hack 5 rubber ducky, I think, currently is $80 US. And the main reason why I sort of suggest start off with the DigiStump is that price point. When you're learning, you don't want to lose something that costs you over $140 Australian, because you'll be sad. So about me, so I am a cybersecurity consultant at the moment. I work for a company called CyberOps. We are as far as I know, the only Australian company that does cyber, space and defence. So part of what we do is hack satellites, which is fun. I'm an OSINT investigator, so I do a lot of work in pretty much stalking people on Facebook. That's how I kind of explain it to my mum, because yeah, she doesn't understand the rest of it. The main background that I have is I am a software developer and programmer. I teach secure coding methodologies, so I will probably sprout on about OWASP and some of the deficiencies in unis teaching coding. As Jim had mentioned, I'm a mentor and trainer, and I own study sessions with Butchie. So that was originally something that was set up and designed to answer one important question: is I'm trying to get into cybersecurity, where do I start? Okay, because it is an overwhelming thing to break into. I'm a martial artist. I've been studying martial arts since I was 6, and an avid defender of that. And I'm a nerdy geek with gaming tendencies. Doesn't matter what type of game, I'll pretty much be in it. And of course, I'll be a hacker. So that QR code will get you an invite to my Discord. So I'll leave that up there for a couple of minutes for anyone to snap. I promise it's not a virus, maybe. Because, we should always be verifying what we're flashing our cameras at. And please excuse that I probably won't accept your invitation and everything until after the workshop. Otherwise, I might be doing it for days. Okay. So I guess the first question is what is a rubber ducky? So a rubber ducky is a USB flash device that way back in the day when they first came out, some brands were actually created with a chip that actually misidentified what it was. And what it would actually tell the computer is, I'm a keyboard, I'm not a mass storage device. Now, this description is apt, okay? It is something that presents itself to a host as a keyboard. The part that I don't like is the part in red. So originally a rubber ducky was not a penetration testing tool. The first original, recorded instances of rubber duckies were actually system admins using it for automation, because it can type a lot faster than a human can, okay? It's only because, as we do, hackers have a tendency to take something that doesn't quite work right, make it do something else, and there we go, we have hacking. So does anyone know about the USB protocol? Do they teach you at that level? No? So there are there are 3 things that a USB device passes to the host to tell it who and what it is, okay? Now, as much as it is a protocol, there's nothing that actually enforces that the device identifies itself in a specific way. What it actually relies on is the vendor or the manufacturer saying, I want my device to be compatible, so I'll tell it it's a USB mass storage device or it's a keyboard. Okay, so there are basically 2 codes. One is 0x05, which is a mass storage device. A rubber ducky reports itself as a 0x03 device. Therefore, a human interface device. And that's really how a ducky began. Okay? If I'm going too fast, I want to get to the good stuff. I hate PowerPoint, so I'll try and get to the good stuff. So I've already gone through a little bit of how it works. Okay, so it's not actually an exploit in the USB protocol. It's just a convenient mistake that we can take advantage of. Okay? Has anyone ever used one before? 1? No? 2? Okay. Oh, and has brought one along. Excellent. So what type of things can we do with them? Pretty much anything that requires typing on a keyboard. You can use one on a locked machine and unlock it. You can use one to create an account that actually bypasses an account that's already there. It'll only use it, you can only use it once because it uses a flaw in Windows. It can create you an account with admin rights. You can log into the machine as whatever account you want to set it to stealing Wi-Fi, which is one of the demonstrations that we'll be doing, to creating a reverse shell back to a Linux-based machine, and one to actually deliver a secondary payload. Does anyone know how to mitigate? Okay. So mitigation strategies with USB rubber duckies. The first one is education, and it's probably the only one that really is going to work. Educate people not to plug USB devices in. If you see a USB rubber ducky on the ground that looks like a USB stick, people, you put a label on it saying, 2023 wage review. Some idiot's going to throw that into a computer and go, I wonder if I'm getting a pay rise, all right? People like me work on that ability to, coerce someone in, social engineering, a couple other things. So educating employees of a company or even family members, if you find a USB stick, don't just plug it in. A USB rubber ducky is only one instance of something that's going to be bad. Evil USBs, malware, crypto locking, all of those can be delivered by a USB device. The story is don't plug them in, okay? Unless you know where that device has come from and what it actually is, don't plug it in. That's the safest way. There are other methods with a Linux-based system and a Windows-based system. The Linux system should work on a Mac as well, but let's face it, Macs don't do anything, so we can leave them out. I'm not a Mac fan. If anyone's a Mac fan, I'm sorry, but you deserve it. So with Linux systems, you can use usedev rules to block it. Okay. The problem with most of these is they are a blacklist in most cases, which means you need to know the specific device. Now, in this instance, I've got a little Arduino board, right? I know what this device is, but I can go out and find a similar board. It's going to give a different aspect of who the vendor is, and the product ID are going to be different. So when you're actually blacklisting, you have to identify each individual device. There are thousands of them. It's really, really the hardest way to do it. And it's a similar thing with the Windows systems, blocking it with group policy, same thing. There are other ways of hardening a system. I would suggest probably looking up Essential 8, the ASD's guide to hardening computer systems, and it'll identify USB rogue devices. All three of those are valid options, but I highly suggest the first one is actually what you need, because if they don't plug it in the first place, you don't need group policy, you don't need udev rules, they just don't plug it in. Be understanding when someone does plug something in, because it's a force of habit. I do it, everyone does it. I haven't been caught by it, but I could be. So has anyone ever worked with Arduinos before? Oh, nice. See, I like makers. And again, if I'm running too fast, just let me know. This is my first time presenting. I'm not nervous, but I am. So. That is not changing my slide. Yeah. There we go. So to use a DigiSpark or a DigiStump as a rubber ducky, you're going to need two things. One is the Arduino IDE, and the other is to configure it to actually work with a specific board. If you've worked with Arduino before, you just need to point it to its library files. Okay, I would always suggest going to DigiStump file wiki directly. There are a lot of different other things out there that actually do it, and when you do it, they'll point you to an old version of the software, and then you have a whole heap of driver issues, and it's just too much. It messes with your head a little bit too much. So that, other than one slide, which will be at the end, 2 slides, is my death by PowerPoint. So just bear with me for a quick second. I will just get one up. Okay. Well, as discussed a little bit before, this is the Arduino IDE. Now, when you start using a DigiStump as a rubber ducky, you need to actually program the board to say, I'm a keyboard. Okay, while the computer and the host will actually recognize it as that, it needs to know itself what to do it. So we include a file. Okay, that is the keyboard, the digikeyboard.h file. Okay, so pretty much if you want to use one of these as a rubber ducky, I would suggest all of these is in your script right from the start. It's going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so this first 3 lines here is essentially just giving it a delay. When you plug a USB device into a computer, there is a delay before it's recognized or it runs. Okay, so this is just telling it to give it, and I believe it's 3 seconds, wait before it actually starts running its software. One of the main things that I'll say about an Arduino is an Arduino, when you plug it in, it will continue to start running its software in a particular pattern or a particular schedule. Okay, so this is where, and I'm going to jump down to the bottom here a little bit. This is where these 3 lines are important. Sometimes when you're running a rubber ducky, and you'll see this in my 3rd example, the script will take longer than that schedule with an Arduino. So the Arduino will go through, and I think it's every 2 minutes that it actually tries to run its software again, or every 60 seconds. Now, if you're halfway through a payload, it's going to start doing that again, and you're going to get some conflicts, you're going to get some errors. Okay? The rest of it is ultimately just to hide the DOS prompt that comes up on your screen, because you don't want the person who's in front of the screen to see it. Okay? Now, a little bit later, for those of us that are here, we'll show a camera and show it on a PC that I've got here. I believe the Discord people can't see it. Okay? Just take my word for it. There will be a DOS prompt on your screen, and it will scroll down and hide. That's all it does. Okay? So from this, I'll go through and explain, I guess, a little bit of a code. Most things are with an Arduino. You know, we set a pin mode, and we can actually set it to switch the light on and off when it's completed its thing. So we can take the USB out, walk away. Okay? So from here, this little bit of code snippet here is essentially opening a DOS prompt, setting the column width and the lines that are in that, so it's going to be like a little tiny box, okay? And then it's going to go up and actually tell that you want to move, using keyboard shortcuts, move that DOS prompt on the screen. And then the for each loop just goes through and says, I want to move it down, 100 spaces, away we go. And then the enter key, which is line 30, is just to break out of that shortcut key mode, okay? In just about every script I write, that's always in there, because I don't want the person who's in front of the computer actually seeing that I'm doing something dodgy. Yeah. So that's a basic autonomy of a USB, a rubber ducky for an AT Tiny 85. Okay. So our next one. So this is a very common demo. You can probably Google stealing Wi-Fi details and USB rubber duckies. A couple of different people have done it. So Darren from Hack5 has done it. The Cyber Mentor, anyone ever heard of the Cyber Mentor? Okay, so he's done a video on it as well. It's essentially going through and using base Windows commands to actually steal credentials and throw them up to a post request. So this is something I prepared earlier. For some reason, it appears that I've plugged this in before. All right. So all this is going to be is, think of it as our C2C server, so our command and control center. Okay, because we can't necessarily see the data that we've because we're going up and we're distracting someone while we plug our USB stick in, we can't actually see the feed that it's giving us. Okay, so this can be where we've programmed it through a webhook to actually send it up to a site that we can go and look at on our actual host machine that we've got somewhere else, i.e. my laptop. And I will just get rid of those. Okay. So the Wi-Fi stealing aspect, this doesn't need to be as complicated as what you may think. So a netsh command is a basic Windows command run in a DOS prompt. If you're as old as me, you would probably remember doing that more than PowerShell. Like PowerShell baffles me a lot of the time. Past that, the PowerShell is actually then going through the results that you're getting, breaking the Wi-Fi access points that the device has actually touched into separate files. And then the last one is to actually upload it to our C2C server and then to exit the DOS prompt so it disappears off the screen. So what we'll do, now, just going to upload the script, throw it in there. It'll tell me it's done or not. Okay. That's as easy as it is to program a USB rubber ducky. So on our actual display device here, please no one steal my super secret password I'm typing in. Okay. So this is where, as I said, all you'll see on the Windows machine, provided it works and the demo gods don't hate me, is after a couple of seconds, a DOS prompt will flash up on the screen. It'll be a tiny little box. It'll disappear somewhere. Oh, there we go. Oh, hang on. It did error. Damn it. Okay, so Wi-Fi screen. Oh. That's okay. Where's my mouse? Mousey. Okay, should have worked. Okay. Let's see if it actually uploaded anyway. Okay. So clearly, the one I prepared earlier did not work. And it's opening random things on my screen. All right. Wi-Fi steal. On occasion with Arduinos, you have to upload the script twice. There are some things with it that you will run into some slight problems with it. One of the biggest things is use a USB dock or hub. Some modern laptops won't actually, for some reason, load the script onto the board. But let's just try that again. All right. And when all else fails, I've got a different dock. There we go. Little box disappears. No one can see it on their screen. So in the meantime, what will actually be happening is over on my little board over there, hopefully, it'll pop up and, oh, there's all my Wi-Fi details. Now, the whole time that I'm here plugging this into a computer, I'm distracting the person that's at the computer. Now, Wi-Fi details are great if you're attacking a laptop, but most desktop machines in an organisation, it's actually kind of useless because they're connected through Ethernet. But it gives you other opportunities. You could be in an internet cafe and your target is in there having their latte, throw the USB rubber ducky in, and away we go. Okay. So with the Windows basics, the netsh command actually has the ability to strip out and show your Wi-Fi password key in clear text. So, ooh, yay, there's my Wi-Fi password for my phone because that's how I'm doing my internet at the moment. Okay. It's a common Windows function. So even Windows in its entirety, and I will just get rid of that because, passwords. I don't change my password much. I work in IT security, we don't have to. So it's a basic Windows command. So even things like Microsoft's Defender and other things are not going to pick it up as malicious activity. Okay. When you're going to use USB rubber duckies and things like that, learn a concept that we call living off the land, right? PowerShell, and one of my next demonstrations, I'll enable Defender. The PowerShell will actually be blocked because it detects its malicious code. But one a little bit later, because I'm not actually pulling down a PowerShell script, I'm pulling down a batch file, and Microsoft now thinks that batch files aren't dangerous. It actually allows it through because it's ordinary, everyday commands that any user can run. So that's the Wi-Fi one. Oh, my details are still up there. Oh, hang on, it's still plugged in. Oops. Right.
It's not like it's being recorded.
No. I'll change that password. Sure, maybe one day. So as I said, from a concept of who you're attacking and what your target is, Wi-Fi is only useful against a mobile device. Now, you can actually write rubber duckies to work against an Android device. So you sit there, get some type of USB connector, similar to the one that I have on my little Surface there, plug it in, and if it's got USB debugging on it, hot damn, anything they've joined, including their Wi-Fi hotspot, passwords are there. You just have to distract them long enough, smoke and mirrors. Oh, look over there, I'm doing this over here. Okay. So the next one is actually about, I think I do the right port. I've got to look at the payload. So the next one is a reverse shell. People familiar with reverse shells? It's things that we love to do with Linux machines, but also when we get a Windows machine back and we get it as a system, awesome. You probably hear it being referred to as popping shells. It is something that we have a tendency to actually like. And I will just, okay. So this is what's going to be pulled down as a payload from my next rubber ducky. And it's essentially PowerShell to open a reverse shell. Oop, and I've got to change an IP address because that's not going to work here. So some of this obviously can be quite difficult to pre-plan, mainly because if you go and connect to their network or you're on their network, having a reverse shell back, you've got to have an IP address. You've got to pre-program your USB rubber ducky so that when you plug it in, it actually points to the right computer and it doesn't alert your system admin because they don't like that stuff. Now, if the computer that you're actually attacking is running any type of antivirus or XDR solution, it's going to pick this up and go, you're trying to do a reverse shell and I'm just going to block it. Okay? Because that's what they're designed to pick up, is that weird, different behavior that's not normal. Whoever it is in the finance department doesn't sit there and write PowerShell, and while we may look at it and go, well, they're probably not going to open up a DOS prompt either, it's more likely that they'll do that and, who am I, than go through and write that gibberish that they call, PowerShell. So what this next one will do is actually download that PowerShell as a payload. And as you can see here in the code, it's less code than the Wi-Fi Stealer one. It gives me more access to the machine, as a hacker, reverse shell, love it. I get to own it. I get to do whatever I want. I get to mess with people and make weird crap happen on their screen. It's awesome. All right. So past here, what it's going to do is actually go to my machine, which I've activated a web server on port 8080, download the payload.ps1 file, and then it's just going to run it. A little bit of pre-work that I haven't put up on the screen is essentially I'm telling it to open a netcat listener on port 4444 because it's Metasploit and no one knows what that will do. Let me just check it. And as you'll see, you have the host IP and the port that will connect on just there. And we'll just save that. Okay, and we'll do that. Okay, so at the moment, just sitting there listening on that. As with before, we just press our little button to upload a script, plug the rubber ducky in. Ooh, thank you. Oh. Go over to this one. Now, you're not going to see much different on this particular one. I think I disabled the whole scrolling of the DOS prompt. Yep. So this one will stay on your screen a little bit, and I do apologise for everyone on Discord that can't see it. But it's just to give you an idea on what can and what can't happen. As long as it doesn't die on me. Woo! I'll leap a PowerShell. Okay, how's that? Better? Okay, so this should be working, and I'm unsure as to why. Okay, so again, you know, demos don't like me. Let's just do this in a different way. Web client, would have downloaded the script. Yes, didn't download it to anywhere in particular. Yes, all right, cool. Okay. So what was supposed to happen in this particular instance is it was actually supposed to do a reverse shell. There might be a slight technical problem. What you would be doing, would be seeing in the terminal window here is actually the output of those commands because I have a shell to the Windows machine. For some reason, this one has always given me trouble, and it's just annoying because it's Windows and it's trying to do a shell. But we can always try to unplug it and then re-plug it back in. All right, let's give it another try. PowerShell, 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 and then that has disappeared. Yeah, for some reason it's not actually giving me a shell. Okay, so I do apologise. That demo does not seem to want to work for me. So is everyone familiar with the reverse shell concept? So showing you the output of ls or who am I. You can actually deliver this. Now, this is a very, very short script. The reason that I've done it as a payload, and don't get me wrong, the reason it could actually be blocking is I can't remember if I actually turned off Windows Defender or not. That would explain a lot. Ultimately, it's a very, very short amount of code. So the AT Tiny 85 only allows, I think, about 6K of code to actually be executed. Now, simple reverse shell, pretty easy. It's a couple of lines of code, if that. But when you want to do something a little bit bigger because you don't have access to their actual connection and things like that, delivering a secondary payload is is usually the better idea to do that. So for that one, I have a different script. So this is probably, I guess you could say the Wi-Fi stealer on a little bit of steroids, because, you know, who just wants Wi-Fi details? What this one actually does is, using the concept of living off the land, it downloads a batch file. That batch file then goes through and enumerates the entire Windows system. So enumeration is key when you're doing any type of security engagement, and it's essentially going and finding the bits that you need to find, okay? So in the defense of that tiny little bit of code for the reverse shell, this is a little bit extra code that does the enumeration. Now, these are all basic Windows commands that, you know, if you've ever done Windows admin work, you've probably run at least 3 or 4 of these. These are commands that as any user on the system, whether you are a system admin or not, you can run. Some of them won't give you all of the detail, but a good 90% of them will. So as an example, it will be able to tell you what privileges you have. Why? Because your account needs to know them. It will tell you what groups you're in. Why? Again, because your account needs to know them. And this is where living off the land actually is quite useful, because nothing's going to flag this as being bad, because the account is checking what groups it's in, so it knows what it can and can't do, okay? The problem is that if I coded this all on my Tiny 85, let's just call it a rubber ducky for the moment, that's too much code to fit on that one chip. And this is where one of the limitations versus a store-bought, you know, rubber ducky from Hak5 that's, you know, $80 US dollars, compared to something that's $5 Australian, is that we can't actually put that much code in that. So we need to start then delivering payloads. And you can daisy chain these payloads, you know, one after the other, and actually get your payload to download your second payload and your third payload and your fourth payload. And depending on how you're writing it, it'll either get flagged or it won't. So let's just get rid of that. And this one, oh, and we'll take this one off because, okay. So does anyone have any questions while I'm doing this? Feel free just to shoot up a hand. I'm all good with it. Okay. So this one is actually using a bit of what we had in our Wi-Fi stealer. So we have our webhook just sitting there. A little bit of the delivering a second payload with the PowerShell script, plus the Wi-Fi details aren't enough for me. I want more. So it's going to go through the same process that the first one did. It'll open up a DOS prompt on the Windows machine. It'll run. It'll disappear off our screen. It does all of that fantastic stuff. And then there should be a little bit more information put up here, if it works and it doesn't fail on me, which I'm hoping it doesn't. Maybe. This one takes a little bit longer because of some of the commands that we're running. So it will actually dump all of my ARP traffic. It'll dump my routing table. It can actually do my firewall rules. As you can see, this is a lot more information that as an attacker, I love this. This even gives me, ooh, what hotfixes are installed to see if they're actually, you know, vulnerable to any known vulnerabilities. This is all just from me walking up and plugging in a USB stick. You know, again, all of my network adapters, I run a lot of virtualization technology, so I have a crap load of like interfaces there. Not all of them are connected. ARP traffic, you know, going around to, you know, ports that are open, processes that are running, active connections, a lot of them. Oh, Wi-Fi details again, a little bit more information on the Wi-Fi details. Oh, look, there's my phone. You know, again, my password's probably going to be there somewhere. A lot more information. So out of a lot of these things, what's the most useful part of it? Does anyone know in enumeration, what's the one thing that you want to try and do? As soon as you have an initial foothold on the system, what's the first thing you want to do? Persistence is one. Persistence will have a caveat to it in the sense that persistence will only, you should only do persistence after you've elevated your privileges. Having persistence on a non-privileged account doesn't do anything for you. Having persistence on a privileged account does. So with all of these things, you know, the privileged information, you'll notice that, oh, one of them is enabled. So right there, I can bypass traverse checking. So this gives me the information to go, okay, now I know I can do this as that user on that system. It doesn't give me my Windows password. No, doesn't do that. It does actually list a whole heap of different groups that I'm in. You know, oh, look, there's email addresses as well. Wow, I really should sanitize stuff before I do demos. Anyway, you know, different things like that. Oh, other accounts on the system. Okay. One of the best things to see on a Windows system is the default administrator account. Do you know how many people leave that thing without a password and enable? It's awesome. You walk up to the screen, you reboot it, and you go, I'll log in as administrator with a blank password. Bam. Okay. So there's a lot of different real good information that you can pull there from a USB RoboDucky. And again, this is just why I've been talking about, you know, how was your weekend? Plug a USB in. Oh, really? You know, and they start to look back at the screen, you just tap on the desk, get their distraction so that it disappears off the screen. Once it scrolls down to the bottom of the screen and they can't see the DOS prompts, they can go for as long as it wants. Then as soon as you see the little light on your USB and you go, oh, okay, it's finished, I'll just take that out. Oh, okay, well, I'll see you next week. Meanwhile, I've profiled their entire system. Okay? I don't need to be on the network to do it. I can steal that information. So does anyone know of a recent thing, and it's been recent, of credential smuggling or stealing? Oh, everyone should be raising their hand if they listen to the news. 3CX. So 3CX had, I'm not going to say bad code. Actually, it was bad code. Actually, it was really, really good code. It was just not theirs. Smuggled into their product, right? Because they trusted a third-party library. It's a supply chain attack, basically. And what it was designed to do is, after a certain amount of time, it starts smuggling all of their credentials, shipping it off to a C2C server, so you get all this login information for a phone system on a Windows Mac device. It can be a phone, it can be your laptop, it can be anything. It's called credential smuggling. Awesome. It's really, really good. But it involved reporting back to a C2 server. This does it as a simple USB you walk up and plug in. The exact same concept. It takes that information, steals it, and smuggles it somewhere else for me that I can actually go back, take my time and assess it and go, oh, Steve's not an admin on this one, but I can see the default administrator is there. Let's give that a crack. Okay. As we're scrolling through, you know, usually when you see this, if this is about this size, it means that the person is actually updating their Windows, they're installing their security patches, but you might be able to go through there and go, they're missing one, you know, Eternal Blue. Awesome, I use it all the time, it's great. But you can actually then go, okay, I know there's a known exploit for this system that if I can get access to their Wi-Fi network, for example, because I've also got their Wi-Fi password, I can then target this machine with Eternal Blue. Okay. Enumeration is far more important in an engagement than actually sitting there and going, oh, I've successfully got a shell. Because you can prove that you can get a shell. You can prove you can get that privilege escalation, and then you can explain to your company, or customer I should say, this is the risk this poses to you, okay? This is why you tell people, don't plug USBs in, bad. Some useful disk information. So we've been concentrating on smuggling credentials, we've been concentrating on reverse shells. Is there an attack where you can actually compromise the hardware information that we have here? What happens to a Windows system if the hard drive's full? Won't boot. Okay, so then if someone can't access a system for its normal purpose, what type of attack? Denial of service. I can walk up here, I can fill that hard drive with ones and zeros, I can erase the drive. I can do anything with that little USB stick. Plug it in, ooh, all of your company files are deleted. No one's getting a pay rise this year because it was actually payroll's computer, and gone. From here, I know it's internal IP address. If I'm on the network, I may just throw Metasploit at it. Say, give me what you can. It's going to go on fine if they don't have security updates installed. A whole heap of different other stuff. Manufacturer information on the Wi-Fi device. The one that's actually connected. Ooh, I'm using Google for my DNS. I could probably do some type of DNS spoofing attack. Men in the middle stuff. Tell them that I'm actually their bank and they give me their credit card details. Ooh, whole heap of more information. Oh, routing tables. What other devices are on their network? Oh, there's one there with .15. Oh, I don't know who that is. That's not me. Anyway. Art tables. You can do some type of art poisoning, different aspects of that. Different services. I could go through and just start hammering all of these different services. 445 is a fun one. Samba is usually pretty good. Obviously, if we had 3389, we could probably look for Eternal Blue, but I don't think RDP is actually enabled on this. Just checking. Nope. And then we start getting back to our Wi-Fi information with, our connection details, all that sort of good stuff. So, for a little $5 device, I can walk into any company and own it. So that's most of the practical demonstration. I do apologise the reverse shell one didn't work because the reverse shell stuff is fun. But, ultimately anything you can think of that can be done by typing something on the keyboard can be done with one of these devices. If you need to do more than 6K worth of memory, right, you may need to look at buying a bigger one. I would probably suggest going to the Malduino first because it is cheaper than Hack5's device. Hack5's device is good, but if you need to drop that somewhere, I'd much prefer to drop something that's $5 than something that's $80 US. Yes, it looks like a USB, but 3D printing. Go and print something for it. There is another device that Hack5 do called a Bash Bunny. Pretty sure it's the Bash Bunny. That allows you to do multiple payloads or multiple things with the USB device. I think the Malduino does as well. It's just a little bit harder to enable the different payloads. The Bash Bunny's just got a little button on the side. The Malduino is actually switches on the board itself, which is a little bit harder to do if you're trying to be inconspicuous. It's like, getting a tiny little screwdriver out and flicking, switch 3, as opposed to just pressing a button on an already existing device. Any questions? Am I going too fast?
I got a question.
Oh.
Are you able to share the scripts that you've shown in today's workshop with the group?
Ahead.
Sorry?
You're jumping ahead, but yes. So there are a couple of references and useful links that I'll do in my second last PowerPoint slide, where you will find the Wi-Fi credential stealer and I believe the reverse shell. The enumeration one, it's actually, the batch file is my own creation, and it actually took, I guess, cutting different bits out of those first two to actually then create the payload that goes on the Arduino that then pulls it off. But when you start working with a lot of them, you'll start to see the commonalities on, I can upload this to a webhook and things like that. Just bear in mind that the webhook that's actually involved in this, let me just see if it, so it'll be this webhook here, will actually stop working once I close my browser. Webhook site does actually allow you to have an account where you can actually have a permanent link that you can just upload everything to. But like all things, if you're doing this, I know we're not allowed to do it for nefarious reasons. If you weren't doing this for nefarious reasons, notice the eye roll, you wouldn't sign up for an account because it identifies you. So you'd need to find another way to do it. One of those could be as simple as, like I ran a web server on my Linux laptop, I can run an FTP server and upload it through FTP to the machine directly and not go through a third party. But there are a couple of different things. The links in the second last slide, I'll leave up there for a little bit. Yeah, and we can go from there. Let me just get that back up. How do I make that work? There we go. All right, let me just quickly give everyone some type of seizure by me clicking everything way too quick. All right, so they're probably the top three are actually related to rubber duckies. The other one is my study sessions, and that's the same QR code that was up before. So the DigiStump is the Arduino-based board that I've been going through tonight. And that particular GitHub actually has a lot of different scripts. Have a look through it. You'll find some that'll be cool. Let it give you ideas. One of the biggest things, and I've probably said it a couple of times now, learn to live off the land. Understand what commands can be run on any system, whether it's a Windows system, a Linux system, or a Mac, where it won't highlight some security countermeasure. As I said, the reverse shell, it always gets blocked. Why? Because reverse shells are bad, and your average user in the finance department is not going to create a reverse shell. They don't even know what one is, right? So if all of a sudden their account starts creating PowerShell to do a reverse shell, of course the security mechanism is going to pick it up. Okay, especially newer gen XDRs and things like that. They're designed to look at odd behavior based on the user's history or behavior. Hack5, that's where you can go and buy the USB rubber ducky from Hack5. Again, I think it's about $80 US. Occasionally they'll have Black Friday sales. That's where I got all of mine on a Black Friday sale, and I think I saved like $300. The ducky converter actually allows you to take the Hack5 USB rubber ducky scripts and actually convert them to work with the Arduino board that I've got here. So you don't have to then rewrite it because they are two different languages. One is actually Arduino and the other is some weird ducky script that Hack5 created. But the ducky converter, you can pretty much take that ducky script, put it in there and go convert, and then you can just copy and paste that into your Arduino. Easy, okay? And the last one, as I said, is just the study sessions. So probably a little bit more on what we do there. We don't teach. Although we are mentors and we're quite happy to answer questions, we all are working professionals, the ones that are in there as professionals. There's about 15 to 20 of us. Ultimately, we're there. If you ask us a question, one of us probably knows the answer or can go and find the answer for you or help you. And that's on a range of different things from, as I said, I do open source intelligence. My boss is heavy into the GRC and other things. I've got one guy who's a electrical engineer. We can answer a lot of questions. There are a lot of people that donate their time to doing that. Ultimately, the biggest thing that we say with it is you only get out of it what you put in it. If you don't ask us a question, we can't answer it for you. Every now and again, we run workshops. USB rubber ducky is a little bit hard over the air because you're actually trying to show what it looks like on a machine, and you're compromising that machine. It's a little bit difficult to record that and not get in trouble. Other things like virtualization workshops on how to actually set up home labs so you can practice some of this stuff safely, especially if you're going to get into reverse engineering of malware. The last thing you want to do is encrypt your NAS at home. Not done it. Know people that have. They were sorry. Okay? So we will answer and we will help you in those things. We won't take the place of uni, but we've got, just from the company that I work at alone, we have 5 people that are in there that have at least 20 to 30 years experience in the industry, okay? And they're all there just to answer questions. And sometimes we, do a CTF because, we like doing that shit. Oh, sorry, am I allowed to swear? All right. Anyway, Do we want this up for a little bit longer? Well, the next slide is questions, so fire away.
So one of the things you were mentioning before, for example, with the reverse shell, that's something that can be detected usually by like a Windows Defender, sort of like a default antivirus.
Yep.
Is there? But there are commands that are less conspicuous that wouldn't be picked up by it. Is there other things you can do as a system admin to monitor commands that could be used in a conspicuous way that aren't actually conspicuous, if that makes sense? So listing system information isn't necessarily nefarious, but can be used by nefarious actors and stuff like that.
So a lot of that comes down to, there are a lot of proprietary or commercial products out there that will do that. So when you start talking SIEM, so your Security Event and Incident Management System, ultimately you get all of your endpoints. And I guess this is where the difference between a SIEM and an XDR is a little bit different. A SIEM is a reporting tool, so your endpoint, your Windows device, for example, pushes all of its system event viewer logs through to the SIEM, and then based on your query, your notifications through your SIEM, your SOC or your system admins get an alert saying, John in accounting is all of a sudden doing reverse shells. What the, One of the biggest things I find with detecting this is that the organisation or the customer doesn't even have logging enabled. It's a basic thing, like, yes, it generates lots and lots of traffic, but that's where you have a device or a system, a SIEM, that can actually sit there and you have to do the alerts. You program, I want to see this particular event ID, where it's, John has called for a PowerShell script. Well, he doesn't know PowerShell, he's an accountant. They don't know much at all. So there is that aspect of, it depends on your other systems. Cybersecurity and IT security in the industry is a multi-layered defense, all right? You cannot rely on a single thing, okay? So the education of don't plug a USB in is obviously at the the employee or user level. But even in systems, your system administrator hardens your Windows devices to an Essential 8 level, all right? Your SIEM then detects things just in case for some reason someone can get past that, okay? So there are systems out there that do it, and there are some that are starting to get a little bit of smarts. We have AI, ML thrown around a lot. There are some systems, mainly XDR systems, that will actually look at something and go, this behavior is actually out of character for this user. Why are they doing it? And it may not necessarily alert it, but it could be actually designed to automatically block that behavior, because they've never before in the 20 years they've been working here ever run a PowerShell command. Why are they doing it now? And those systems can automatically block it. Good question though. Anyone else? Oh, there's a couple.
What other successful ways that RubDuckies are deployed? You mentioned literally walking out the system straight from plugging it in. But are there other ways that they are deployed?
Yeah, sometimes they can just be USB sticks thrown in a car park. As I said, that tried and true, 2003, pay increases. Someone's going to read that and go, I wonder if I got a pay increase, and they plug it in themselves. You don't even have to do the work. So yes, you can get the user to work for you. So rubber duckies are actually in a category of what we call physical implants, and there are others around there. So you might have seen the OMG cable, which is essentially like an iPhone cable that steals your data as you plug in and charge your iPhone. It's a physical implant. The biggest thing with these type of devices is it physically needs to be done by someone, okay? Whereas when we're doing things remotely, Metasploit or something like that, we're remotely doing something, or we're an insider threat. Insider threat can walk up to someone's desk, see that they got a black USB stick, I just swap them out. Okay, you can socially engineer someone to plug it in for you. Different things like that. Other physical implants are, you can use Raspberry Pis, so a Raspberry Pi 0 with wireless capability, fantastic rubber ducky. You just get the Wi-Fi to connect back to your laptop, you plug it into your machine, and you've actually got your own reverse shell. You know, print up a nice 3D case, it looks like some type of, I don't know, Bluetooth dongle. You know, physical implants come in many, many different ways. You know, bash bunnies, there's land turtles, there's, you know, all interesting names because we seem to do that. They all fall into the same category. Someone has to pick them up, physically plug them into something, okay? And there's always, as I said, the social engineer thing. Oh, hi, it's Steve from the IT department. I'm just sending you down a USB stick to, you know, to run some checks on your system because last week you said, I don't know, it's doing things weird. Like, when is anyone's computer ever not doing anything weird? You know? So there are other devices in the physical implant category. The only thing is it takes a certain amount of, I guess, bravery to walk up and plug something into a computer. Don't do it at a bank. Even if you have permission, they don't like it. You know, you walk up and there's the teller machine's computer and you plug a USB stick in the back. They don't like you doing that. But yeah, there are other devices that can be used. They all have different purposes as well.
Yep. So basically my question is, would you recommend pursuing, say, like an electrical engineering sort of like interest to sort of like understand how these things work and whether or not there's an advantage of doing so?
Oh, it's an interesting question. I don't know. The one thing that I will say from a cybersecurity career is I've come across people in this industry that are cybersecurity professionals that started in the most unlikely areas. One of the best reverse engineer guys I know, and he does things at like, you know, ring zero or the kernel level, used to be a baker. He used to bake bread. And, you know, 3 years later and he's like running rings around me and it makes me feel really bad. Previous ones, librarian. You know, there are a lot of famous InfoSec people that you know, started out in jobs that you look at and you go, how is that cybersecurity? You know, I myself, way back in my youth, became a qualified locksmith. Weirdly enough, it actually has a lot to do with cybersecurity now because I break into server rooms. Awesome. You know, we can one day also do a, you know, lockpick village type thing, depending on how the uni feels.
That'd be great, actually. Definitely, please.
And this is the thing, it's like, that was way back when I was 18. I'm a little bit older now. And my boss is sitting there going, oh, really like to show them physical security, why it's important we lock a server room and why it needs to be a decent lock and, you know, it should remain locked at all times. But I think we might need to find someone to actually show how you can break in. It's like, oh, like this. And just go up and break into our own server room. He goes, right. And I go, yeah, qualified locksmith. You know? So, yeah, and there are a lot of people. Does everyone here know Tabs?
Yeah. Oh,
So-
not everyone, but some.
Yeah, Tabs is a farmer. Tabitha is a farmer. You know, she's in cybersecurity. She does OSINT investigations as well. Yeah, Tabitha. Yeah, you know, unlikely different
She just
areas.
got into ASD.
Yes. And she's been doing work with the National Child Protection Task Force, which is a good organisation that if you're into OSINT, they need help finding people who do human trafficking, child sexual exploitation material. And this is a volunteer organisation that you can go and do, you know, open source intelligence investigations with.
Yeah, like as in people specialised in that kind of thing?
Sorry?
Like as in people who are specialised in that sort of, you know, area?
Yeah, if you, well, as I said, open source intelligence is really just being able to stalk someone on Facebook. You know, you can start as simple as that. You can go on Facebook and you go, okay, so John Doe here has got 3 kids and a wife, you know, they're all of their contacts, and you just join the dots. You know, you see where the connections are. That can be a simple OSINT investigation. Others
Like
can be
some
accessed.
people, yeah, some people who've been lost have been found that way. I think there's like a worldwide search for like people who've been missing for so many years, and they're, you know, paid.
So every year in Australia, starting 3 or 4 years ago, we have the National Persons Missing Hackathon, Missing Persons Hackathon, which is a collective thing between the local police, Australian Federal Police, and a company called Tracelabs. And they run a hackathon where people like us go in and try and find new leads on missing people through using OSINT. You know, it is one of my passions. I love it, mainly because I do get into that whole creepy stalker vibe. Yeah. I don't, but it's amazing. It really is amazing the amount of stuff people put on the internet about themselves, and then when you go up to them and go, oh, do you know this is all online? It's like, oh, there's my 3-year-old Tinder profile. Yeah. Those pictures, not appropriate for work. You know? So you can actually get into some interesting fields. One of the things I find when people get into cybersecurity, it's overwhelming. No one should ever expect you to know everything about a computer. Okay, we all don't. It's impossible to know. There's so much, again, shit. In the cyber or IT world, you can't know everything. The simple fact is have your generalist knowledge, have your understanding of networking, having your understanding of software development, having understanding of how systems work is your first base step. Then pick a specialization. Then decide if you're going to do, digital forensics, or mobile application hacking, or, actually go after networks, or, heaven forbid, API, because, that's not a well-paying thing at the moment. Ultimately, it's have that generalist knowledge, which we will get from uni and other things, and then after a while, pick whatever your specialization is. And if you have an electrical engineering background, I can tell you a few defense places that would love to hear about long-range audio devices. As I said, our company does stuff with satellites, both domestic and foreign, both as some of it is actually a hobby thing. So one of our directors is very passionate about passive RF. I don't know why, but he is. Whereas, we sit there and go, oh, let's listen to Chinese satellites. It's like, okay, cool. That's something I can get into. But sitting there and going, oh, well, I've just created this great big antenna to sit on my roof. It's like, weirdo. Flip side of things, I started mine with game hacking. Why? Because everyone likes to cheat at games. Who'd have thought I really cheat? I don't now, sort of. But yeah, the thing is you could study anything, you could be in anything, and still have it come across in a cybersecurity world. From electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, you can start looking at SCADA and IoT devices. Go and look at things like mines, councils. Councils do sewage and water treatment. You look at other things like car builders where their entire factory is or robotics. There's still a way you can mess with that. Like SCADA networks are actually quite vulnerable. Even scanning them aggressively seems to take them offline, but we still use them. Cool. Anything else? Yeah, cool. All right then. Go for it.
What would you suggest students to do that would add stuff to their resume to make them more affordable?
Yep.
Once they graduate?
That's actually a very, very common question. So because up until recently there were no cybersecurity degrees or certifications other than the CEH, which we all laugh at now anyway, the OSCP is good. Qualifications are great. One of the biggest things that I found, and Jim can probably attest to this as well, you need to get yourself out there. Network. Go to things like Sec Talks or Asia, B-Sides, all of these different conventions and things like that. Get to know people, ask questions, start up a blog, GitHub pages, go on there, do some CDFs and do write-ups, right? If I can see in a write-up that you know how to report on a vulnerable system, right? Most of my job is reporting to customers. I write Word documents every day. I hate Word. But I do it because that's what my job is. So if I can actually see that, and I remember you from, say we met at, at a Sec Talks thing, which I will get you some details for, and there's something about you that stuck out, I'm going to remember you more than someone's CV. Okay, networking in cybersecurity is probably the biggest and best way to get a job. Right? For my current one, I knew my boss because I worked for a customer. And my boss at the time, said, "Oh, we're going to have a pen test, come in and sit down, and and I know you're into that weird stuff. Do you want to just sit with him for the day that he's here and just look over his shoulder? I'll talk with him, see if it's okay." And Derek came in, had the organisation, which I thought was cool, and then sat down and talked to him about reverse engineering and how I could actually track someone's USB and Bluetooth devices with blah, and then he goes, "Oh, we should keep in touch." So we did, and then it was a year and a half later, and I said, "Oh, I need a vacation from my job," and he goes, "Oh, well, how about you come and work for me?" That was my interview. It was literally coffee with him and the other director, and said, "How much money you want?" I was like, "Is that a trick question?" Yeah. Oh, offensive amounts. No. And I actually just said, "Oh, just pay me what the current work pays." I said, "It's more getting the industry and getting the experience." And he goes, "We're going to pay you more than that." Like, okay, cool. Do you want to ask me any questions? What I know how to do, how many languages I can program in, how many operating systems? Nah, it's all good. We already know who you are. And that's a very, very big thing in the cybersecurity side of IT, more than IT itself. There are a couple of good recruiters to get to know as well. So the main one would probably be Ricky from Cybersec People. Can't remember the name of the company. Ricky and his team, because they only do recruiting for cybersecurity. They can help you understand what to put in your CV and your resume. But the biggest thing, as I said, it's really that networking thing. Go to Sec Talks, go to B-Sides. B-Sides probably more than Asia, because Asia is more targeted towards management people and it's a vendor con. So you go there and everyone wants to talk about their new firewall that costs $6,000. B-Sides, you sit in there in the hacking village and you put a badge together and you show how you can hack a badge. So from a technical point of view, I'm going to be there more than listening to Fortinet explain, "Ooh, we've got this new firewall that does this." It's like, sure. Networking, top one. Blog, get out there your technical skill in a blog, okay? Reply to people's posts on LinkedIn if they're talking about a particular subject, but get out there and get to know people. I am on LinkedIn, I'm on Jim's LinkedIn, connect with me. I do have some business cards that are probably more related to the study sessions than my actual work. Past that, things like this, like my study sessions, as I said, I've got 15 to 25 professionals in there, right? The moment they start needing to look for someone, even if it is a junior, and you're in there and you're making some noise and you're asking questions, you may not necessarily even be considered the right questions, but you're asking questions, you're getting involved, you're talking with people. And if you come back with solutions for other people in there, because it's about helping everyone. One of the biggest things in our community is that we actually do like to help each other, because we know you can't know everything. So someone comes to me and go, "Oh, how do I break into a Microsoft SQL server?" I know, hammer. And they go, "Oh no, you just need to run XP command shell," and there you go. It's like, oh, cool. And after 30 years, I didn't know that. Well, I did know that. But after 30 years, someone who is a student at university actually told me the little bit of code at the bottom of the Arduino that stops it running every 60 seconds, was actually given me by a first-year university student. I've been working with those things for like 10 years. Had no freaking clue. Oh, sorry. I drop the F-bomb a lot. I'm sorry. I also get a bit excited. Not sorry, but yeah. So networking, get your technical skill out there in a blog. Doing CTFs is great. It gives you the technical skill, but one of the main things that we're going to look for in the industry is, can you actually portray that to the customer? Because being able to hack into the system is one thing, but if you can't tell the customer how they're vulnerable, what the risk is to them, like if someone had gone up to Optus and said, "Look, if you don't secure this API behind some type of username or password and stop using sequential IDs, someone's going to own you," maybe Optus would have done something. Probably not, but yeah. It's definitely about communication. Like I talk to, boards of directors, You know, and I'm sitting there and going and explaining them to, you know, oh, well, on your application, you need to actually sanitize input using a regular expression that does this. And they just glaze over, you know. The programmer's understanding me and the director's going, I have no idea what you're talking about. I go, oh, well, if you don't sanitize what someone's typing in on the keyboard, right, they're going to type in these special things, and then all of a sudden they've got your credit card details and your bank account details. Oh, well, that's bad. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I find, and it's becoming more and more evident every time I go to an engagement, fundamentally as a community, we teach things wrong, okay? And this isn't just university or anything else like that. So when you're taught to build a network, you're taught this is how you build a network. When you taught to code, you know, you taught problem solving and, you know, control statements and, you know, inheritance and all of this stuff. And secure coding is an elective that you get later. What we should be doing, and we should have been doing for the last 10 or 20 years, is this is how you code securely is your actual, you know, base core model. You know, everyone heard of the OWASP top 10? Please say yes. All right, cool. So on the OWASP top 10 for the last 20 or so years, SQL injection is on there as a common, you know, exploit. Yet we're still not teaching people how to defend against it. So showing your technical skill and understanding where those problems are, very, very important. But go on network, get out there and meet people. You know, shake their hands, ask them that weird question. You know, I have been up here and someone's asked me a hard question. I've not been, you know, able to answer it. But it's like, okay, come and give me your details and I'll answer for you later. I will actually go and find it. And I'll remember you because you bailed me up in front of everyone and embarrassed me. Yeah. You know, it does work. That's how I know him. So he talked me into doing these workshops and shit. Oh, stop doing that. So yeah, networking and then show your technical skill through a blog. Show you can communicate that information, okay? And then past that, just have some fun. You know, we're all crazy. We all have sense of humours. There's one or two of us that are probably a little bit uptight, but weirdos.
Thank you.
All right.
Just one more question over here.
Yep.
Hi, have you ever like used a rubber ducky or like some sort of USB thing in like a client like engagement in like your work?
Yeah. Mainly in banks. This is why I say don't do it. They don't like it. You know. So there are 2 to 3 different types of engagements. So you have a white box, a grey box, and a black box. So a grey box is where I am authorised to do it. I go in there. The person that I'm talking to doesn't necessarily know, but corporate signed off on it. And part of it is actually are my staff being mindful of the technology around? I have done USB drops. That was more in an educational setting though. And it was actually, the company had started or purchased educational material to educate people about cybersecurity and physical security as well. So tailgating, USB devices, you know, don't click on this random link in an email that asks you for your password. But they wanted to actually test whether or not the message was getting through to their staff. So I have done it in that sense. And I agreed to do it in that sense because it was going to be an educational thing, not a disciplinary thing. I don't like to get people fired. It just doesn't sit right with me. But it was actually seeing whether or not the training that they paid a lot of money for was actually making sense to their people. So we actually did it quite a lot. We did get a couple of people. They were also the people that for some reason were actually acing the training on their first attempt, and we don't know how. But yes, I have used a rubber ducky. I've also used a land turtle. And I haven't used a bash bunny yet. And I have used a Raspberry Pi Dropbox to actually maintain persistence on the network after I left. Just plug it in the server room, put on it, don't touch IT. No one goes in and touches it. It's got IT written on it. Yeah. And that allowed me to pretty much own the network. Reverse shell back to a C2C server, and I pretty much had system access to a Windows 2019 machine that they didn't patch. Then got a whole heap of Kerberos tickets and decided, I'm going to have some fun. I've also done it from a OSINT engagement as well, where one of the directors of a company that we did asked for us to profile company directors to see what possible threat intelligence we could determine, and got his home Wi-Fi passwords, which is also the same password that he used for everything else. His wife's name, his kids' names, where his kids went to school, past addresses, present addresses, telephone numbers of all of his closest family members just with the USB stick. I do like being the creepy stalker on occasion. Then walked in and said, oh, I think we need to deliver this to you personally rather than to the board, because the whole board knew about it. I said, but you might want us to just give it to you and then you can choose to disseminate it throughout everyone. And he was actually quite shocked on the 50 pages of data that we gained just from using a USB rubber ducky on his laptop. And it's all because he used the same password. You know, had his home Gmail account installed on his work machine. You know, all of that enumeration that I got then just fed into dark web searches, looking for him in breaches, looking for, don't go looking for breaches until you're employed, because you might go and find things on the dark web that you really shouldn't find. But yes, so I've done it in a couple of engagements. They're the engagements that I like more than writing the report, because it's boring. All right, I'm good.
Easy, cool. How many did you want to give away of your little ducks?
Well, I've got 5 here I can give away.
Cool. So we do have 25 to give away. They are a week late though. So are you just happy to add those to our pile and we'll randomly distribute them? Fantastic. So yeah, we'll basically send you an email after this session. We'll randomly draw now 30 people who will take one home. We've got 40 people here today in person. So if you're here, you'll have an equal chance to get one. And then if you don't get one, we'll also send out an order form. If you want to order one through us, you'll have to pay for it, but we'll probably try and get it down to the $4 mark because we'll be bulk purchasing. But yeah, I'll hand it over to Jim to wrap up, I guess, and thank Butchie.
I do actually have some of the Hack5 ones here if you want to have a look. I will hold on to them with dear life because they are expensive. But you can at least have a look at what a Bash Bunny looks like and what the rubber ducky actually looks like. So you can, have a bit of a squiz.
If I touch that, that's not leaving my hands.
Oh yeah, no, they're precious. Oh.
All right, that basically concludes the night. Now, just one more big appreciation for Steve for today's workshop. Yeah, really appreciate it because he did come here with offered his time to us to give us a bit of a very valuable lesson on how to use this exploit, how to actually create the payload, and we'll try to make the payload available in our Discord server, just so it's easier for you guys to copy right away. But again, please don't use it to, for anything malicious. I'm pretty sure in Flinders, the USBs are disabled, so you can't start enumerating the Flinders, the Flinders computers. At the very least, in the Cisco lab, it is disabled. You can't plug any USBs. Yeah. So what you don't want is your Flinders fan associated with a rubber ducky on the Flinders machine. So, yeah. But thank you for coming. I know Alistair said that we're giving out 30. I'm gonna try and squeeze a few more cash out from CSE, see if we can give everyone that is here today. Appreciate your time coming to the workshop. We have all your names for the people who are actually in person. We'll try to give everyone one each. We'll try, hopefully they see this recording tomorrow. And also because of the turnout of the workshop are becoming larger and larger. And with that comes privileges. And comes benefits. So now is the time for us to sing to CSE and ask for funding. So because of everyone's effort coming out after uni, spending your time working on your skills, we can all make it happen. So hopefully we see you again next month, first Wednesday of May, and we'll announce the next workshop then, or before then. All right? Thank you very much, guys.